It was supposed to be a romantic evening. Daniel and Claire were walking through the park, engaged and planning their future. But then, a man in a wheelchair rolled past, struggling to get up a steep path. Claire leaned closer to Daniel and whispered with a smirk, "Kick that wheelchair and I'll marry you." Daniel froze. At first, he thought she was joking, but the look on her face said otherwise, cold, sharp, almost daring him. In that split second, Daniel's world spun. He had fallen in love with Claire's beauty, her charm, her laughter at parties. But this was cruelty dressed as love. Instead of lifting his foot, Daniel knelt beside the stranger. "Need a hand, brother?" he asked gently. The man smiled in relief as Daniel pushed him up the hill, step by steady step. Claire's eyes burned with anger, but Daniel didn't care. As he reached the top, the man whispered, "Thank you. People like you keep the world alive." That night, Daniel ended the engagement. Not with a fight, not with anger, just clarity. He realized love without kindness is empty, and beauty without compassion is nothing. Months later, Daniel met someone else, not dazzling at first glance, but radiant with empathy. And this time, love felt real. Because in the end, it wasn't about who stood beside him in luxury, but who stood beside him in humanity. True love never asks you to hurt others, it asks you to heal. "Kick that wheelchair, and I'll marry you." The words hung in the air like poison. Daniel stopped dead in his tracks, staring at Claire, the woman he thought he would spend his life with. They were in the middle of the park, evening lights casting long shadows, when a man in a wheelchair struggled to push himself up the hill. Daniel's fiancée smirked, her voice cold and sharp. "Go on. Show me how much you want me." In that moment, everything Daniel thought he knew about love shattered. He had admired Claire's beauty, her elegance, the way she drew attention everywhere they went. But standing there, watching her laugh at another man's suffering, all he could see was cruelty. Daniel turned away from her and walked straight to the man. "Here, let me help," he said, gripping the wheelchair handles. The stranger's face lit up with relief as Daniel pushed him up the incline, step by step. Claire's eyes narrowed, her smile vanishing. "You'll regret this," she hissed. But Daniel didn't. At the top of the hill, the man clasped his hand. "Thank you," he said, voice trembling. "You didn't just push my chair, you lifted my spirit." That night, Daniel ended the engagement. No drama, no shouting, just truth. If kindness isn't in your heart, I can't be in your life. Months later, Daniel found someone new. Not glamorous, not flashy, but gentle, genuine, and filled with compassion. And for the first time, Daniel understood. True love doesn't demand cruelty. True love teaches you to lift others higher. Daniel froze when he heard those words. His fiancée, Claire, wasn't joking. Her smirk, her tone, everything about her carried a cruel edge. Just a few feet away, a man in a wheelchair struggled against the slope of the park path, sweat on his forehead as he tried to move forward. Daniel felt his stomach twist. This wasn't the woman he had dreamed of marrying. He had fallen in love with her beauty, her confidence, her charm, but now, all he saw was a heart empty of compassion. Without saying a word, Daniel walked past Claire and bent down beside the man. "Need a hand?" he asked softly. The man nodded, relief in his tired eyes. Together, Daniel pushed him up the hill, steady and strong, until they reached the top. The man clasped Daniel's hand tightly. "You'll never know how much this means," he said, his voice breaking. "People walk by me every day as if I don't exist. You didn't." Daniel turned to see Claire, arms crossed, scowling like he had betrayed her. But in that moment, the choice was clear. Love without kindness wasn't love at all. That evening, Daniel ended the engagement. It hurt, but he knew deep down it was the right choice. Months later, he met someone else, someone who didn't measure love in status or power, but in simple acts of care. Looking back, Daniel realized that moment in the park wasn't about losing a fiancé. It was about finding himself. Because real love never asks you to step on others. Real love asks you to lift them up. Ever had one of those moments where someone shows you their true colors, and it changes everything? That's exactly what happened to Daniel one afternoon in the park. He was walking hand in hand with his fiancée, Claire. They looked like the perfect couple, at least from the outside. But then, a man in a wheelchair came struggling up a steep path. His arms trembled as he tried to push himself forward. That's when Claire leaned in and whispered with a smirk, Kick that wheelchair, and I'll marry you." Daniel stopped in his tracks. At first, he thought it had to be a joke, a terrible one. But the look on her face? She was serious. In that instant, Daniel realized something he had ignored for too long. Claire had beauty, but no kindness. And what's beauty without compassion? Empty. So instead of doing what she wanted, Daniel walked straight to the man. "Let me help you," he said. With steady hands, he pushed the wheelchair all the way to the top. The man's eyes glistened. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You reminded me that good people still exist." Claire wasn't impressed. She rolled her eyes and stormed off. But Daniel didn't care. In fact, he felt lighter than he had in years. That night, he ended the engagement. It wasn't easy, but it was right. Months later, Daniel met someone new, someone whose kindness shone brighter than any diamond ring. And he learned a lesson we could all use. Real love never asks you to hurt someone else. Real love helps you become better, not crueler.